avoid the evils of writer's block?
No such thing. I tape a copy of my mortgage statement to the side of my computer, and I hit the keys. There was no such thing as, you know what writer's block is? Writer's block is lack of confidence. And if you lack confidence, you're not a writer. You'll die trying to be a writer. Forget it. Sit down and start typing. Type, type, type. The words will begin to make sense. I promise you. There's no such... I wake up every day, and I have a term paper due that I haven't started yet. That's my life. That's what it is to be a writer. When I was working on the Clara Quintet, I think I'd done the first book. Maybe I was working on the second, and I got a call from TSR. And all the TSR calls I got in the early days were, I have good news and I have bad news. And the good news was that the bookstores had demanded a hardcover from TSR, and it had to be a dark elf hardcover. So I was going to become TSR's first hardcover author. Now, I had just quit my job a year before to become a full-time writer. Hardcover is a huge jump. I mean, you get a bigger percentage of a much bigger price. You get a lot more prestige. You get a lot more job security. When you're trying to raise a family, man, this is a big deal for you to go from paperback to hardcover. So I'm thinking, whatever could be the bad news. I need the book in 6 weeks. I wrote The Legacy in 6 weeks. You want to be a writer? Don't talk to me about writer's block. George Martin gets away with it. I don't know how he does these 6 years between books. But writer's block is lack of confidence. You know who your characters are. Sit down and start typing and they'll talk to you. They will.
They don't shut up.
They're not supposed to shut up. If they get annoying, kill them. It's not hard. You can stick them with a dagger, drop a moon on them. I got a million ways to kill. As a matter of fact, you know, that even becomes fun because then the characters who annoy you, just pretend it's an old boss or an old boyfriend or something. I mean, my old bosses have died in my books so many times, in the most horrible ways imaginable. You know, if you ever read the Spear Wielder's Tales, the witch in that got a spear right in the gut, and then they twisted it and twisted it and twisted it. And the whole time I was writing that, I was like, ha ha ha, I know who this is. I think writing's kept me out of prison. No, I simply refuse to believe in writer's block because if you're a writer, first of all, for anyone who wants to be a writer, I give the same advice, and I mean this: if you can quit, quit. I'm not kidding. If you can quit, quit. Because if you quit, you're not a writer. You don't write to become famous and rich. Look around you at all the books, right? 3% of the people writing these books are making a living at it. Less than 1% are making a good living at it. For the rest of the people, it's a hobby that pays them a little bit of money for an awful lot of work. First book typically gets you between $2,000 and $5,000 on an advance.
50.
Okay. You got 50? That's awesome.
I've made $50 out of the whole thing.
Oh, $50. I thought you meant you got $50,000 advance. I'm like, that's pretty good for a first-time author.
I made $50 in royalties.
Awesome. That's awesome. Good for you.
I got a video game.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is that's not why you become an author. You become an author because you've got stories inside you clawing at the inside of your skin, begging to get out. And if you're not writing, you won't be happy. So if you can quit, quit. If you can't quit, you're a writer. It's that simple. And it's the truth. And if you're a writer, don't give me this writer's block crap. I was editing books. I've edited a bunch of books. I edited the EverQuest book line, and I edited the War of the Spider Queen books. And I had a writer going, oh, I've got writer's block, I've got writer's block. And I said, I'll get on a plane, fly down right now, knock on your door, and slap you upside the head. Type. And it works. Not everything you write is going to be perfect, word for word, when it comes out. And a lot of those times when I think I mean, look, you think I want to sit down and write when it's 85 degrees out and I've got the pool out back and my grandson's downstairs and I've got a convertible sitting in the garage? You think I want to be sitting up in an office typing?
Yes.
No. But I do. I do. And even on those days when I think I don't want to write today, that's some of the days, some of the best things happen on those days. Really. It's a type. Yes.
Okay, I think Servant of the Shard was originally part of the Path of Darkness.
Right. Yeah.
What convinced you to continue that trilogy?
Okay. You have to understand something. All these trilogies and everything, that's marketing people. I'm just writing the next book as we go. But what convinced me to follow up on that, when I was going to sign when I signed the new contract with Wizards of the Coast, I said, all right, look, if you want me back, you're going to have to let me explore some of the other characters. And I really wanted to explore Wolfgar, Spine of the World, because I figured nobody could go through what he went through without there being some consequences. And I really wanted to take a look at Entreri, see who he was, and that was Servant of the Shard. And after I decided to go and finish that series, or not series, but finish that road with Artemis and Jarl Axel. That's when we pulled that out. But it was the marketing people. To me, I've written all these books set in the Forgotten Realms about these characters going forward. I don't think of them in trilogies. Like I said, this is the first book of Neverwinter. It's the fourth book of Transitions to me, just as much. So, but what made me keep going was that I thought I had two characters who had a lot of chemistry. And I remember when I wrote Promise of the Witch King, there's a scene at the beginning of it where Entreri's like in bed and he's really feeling kind of miserable and he's kind of sitting up and Jarl Axel's like, come on, let's go, let's go. And Jarl Axel's like throwing him clothes to dress him and everything. Come on, wear this, we're going here, we'll do this. And my friend called me up and he says, they're a gay couple. And I have so much fun with the two of them. Who can't have fun with Jarl Axel, first of all, right? I mean, he's a blast. So I just wanted to see, because there's one part in Servant of the Shard where Dritz is talking about, he heard that Entreri's teamed up with Jarl Axel. And he figures that either Jarl Axel's going to show him so many of the flaws of his life or kill him. It's going to be one or the other. And so if Dritz was interested in that, why wouldn't I be? And I was, and so I followed them. Here's a great story about that, by the way. When I was writing Servant of the Shard, this is one of those moments where you're glad the internet exists. For many books, Jarl Axel had shown up, right, in cameos. Are you all familiar with the term Deus Ex Machina? The literary term. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, basically, the best way I can describe it, it was done well in H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. Remember The War of the Worlds? The Martians come down, they're hitting them with tanks and nuclear bombs, and they can't stop them, and then they all die of the cold. Deus Ex Machina, the best way I can think of explaining it is if I'm the hero and the dragon is ravaging the countryside, nothing can stop this dragon. And the hero attacks the dragon swats him aside, he falls down, he hits a rock, the rock rolls over, and under it's a sword. And the sword has the dragon's name on it, he stabs the dragon dies. It's like the gods came down and fixed everything. Deus Ex Machina. Jarl Axel's my walking Deus Ex Machina. If you look at Jarl Axel in the early books, he always showed up when something was going screwy, and he always had this Jarl Axel utility belt, like Batman. And he'd pull out some item, or a ring, a wand, an orb, something, an eye patch would fix it. That's who he was. He would show up, he would fix something, and he would go away laughing. That's Jarl Axel. And I thought this was the best thing. And then I was so excited because in Servant of the Shard, he was going to become a main character, the protagonist. And I was really excited about this. And I started writing, and I only had 4 months to write the book. And I went, oh no. I have no idea what this guy has for equipment. I have no idea what he's found, what he's lost, what he's given away, what's been destroyed, what he's burned up. What am I going to do? Now I'm thinking I got to go back through 10 books and see every reference to Jarl Axel. And I can't even use my computer to do it because some of them are in formats that no longer exist. I mean, Crystal Shard was written in 1987. Now, Jarl Axel's not in that one, but still, so I'm in trouble. So I went to the internet. I went to a message board, anonymously. And I typed in, hey guys, let's do an inventory of Jarl Axel's cool items. And 2 days later, I came back and I downloaded this 10-page thread. You guys are great. They had page numbers of the books where they appeared. They had what it did. you know, all the different things that the item had done through the books, what they thought it might still be able to do, things, oh no, he doesn't have that anymore, this was lost in this book, and on this page it says he doesn't, well this page over here hints that he might have it, and it's like, all my research done, one sentence. It was awesome. Anyway, I hope I answered your question, because I forgot about it.
How often do you go back and read your own stuff?
Who does that? It's awful. It's awful. I'm always amazed when people come up to me and they'll start talking about like streams of silver. Oh, this scene in Streams of Silver when this happens, and on and on and on and on and on and on. And I'm like nodding, yeah, you got that. Cool. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's almost impossible. I mean, I have to go back and reread now and then, but it's so hard reading your own work after years have passed. I remember the first book I ever wrote was, you don't know, do you? He knows. You know too much about me. A book called Echoes of the Fourth Magic. I wrote it in 1983, 1984. I had gotten out of college. I was working in a plastics factory and bouncing at night in the local nightclubs. And I had run out of fantasy books to read, because there weren't that many around back then. You know, the section in the bookstore was one bay of science fiction, and there were maybe 5 fantasy books on it. Brooks and Moorcock, of course Tolkien, and Fritz Leiber, and Stephen Donaldson, of course. And so I ran out of fantasy books to read. So I said, no, I'll write my own. And so I wrote it longhand, because I thought that's how authors did it. And I wrote it by candlelight, because I thought that's how authors did it. And I wrote it to Fleetwood Mac's Tusk album. I remember that. But anyway, when Echoes of the Fourth Magic, it wasn't the first book I published. The first book I published was The Crystal Shard. Echoes of the Fourth Magic is what got me the audition to do the Forgotten Realms book. Forgotten Realms wasn't even out. They had sent Echoes of the Fourth Magic in. They liked it, but they couldn't publish it. Asked me would I write a book on the realms. A couple of years later, the Echoes of the Fourth Magic got published by Penguin. And then it had a good run, went out of print like 3 or 4 years after that, early to mid-90s. And Del Rey Books wanted to buy it, and the sequel, The Witch's Daughter, and wanted me to write the third book, Bastion of Darkness, which I did. But they said, okay, here's your chance, because now this book was, I had written it in 83, now it's like 93, 94 at least. You can go back and change it if you want. You know, we'll send you we have it all in the galley form. You can take a look at it, make any changes you want. And I started rereading it, and it was like, oh, did I really do that? Oh, did I really do that? All the first book mistakes were in there, of course. And that was my chance to change it, but I didn't change a word. Because to me, a book is a snapshot in time. And I remember when it came out in England, somebody gave me this really awful review in England and said, it's about the Bermuda Triangle. Who talks about the Bermuda Triangle anymore? No one does. But in 1983, when Leonard Nimoy had In Search Of on TV, and there were movies about the Bermuda Triangle, everybody was talking about the Bermuda Triangle. And so part of the book is still about the Bermuda Triangle, just as a vehicle to get them into the fantasy world I wanted them to get into. But anyway, so it's hard. It's hard to go back and reread. It really is. You have to, but it's hard. I've never reread Mortalis. I never will.